Welcome to Nightmare Echoes. Listen closely, scream freely, and surrender your horror obsession. I'm your host, Elazar, and tonight Steven joins me as we dissect the brutal mind games of Saw 3. What really became of Eric Matthews after his final scream in the last film? Is Jigsaw teaching a lesson or orchestrating a final reckoning? And just what secret does the key around Amanda's neck unlock? If you dare follow us, all our social links are in the description. Next week, we'll be exploring the haunting depths of Stir of Echoes. But for now, brace yourself for a film that asks the unthinkable in a trial built on grief and vengeance. Would you survive Jigsaw's test? Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Nightmare Echoes. I'm your host, Elazar. I'm joined again by co-host Steven. Steven, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good.
We're here to talk about Saw 3 today, but I wanted to mention to you that before watching these Saw movies for the podcast, I had only seen the first Saw movie. So it's interesting to watch these in order for the first time and just see how the story progresses. Now, you've seen them all.
Right, I have them all
it's
on Blu-ray and digital, some of them in 4K.
Wow.
Yeah. And because all those different types of media came out, they've re-released Saw 3 so many times that there are 3 versions of it in existence. The theatrical version was an hour and 48 minutes, the unrated version was an hour and 53, and the director's cut was 2 hours and 4 minutes. And with each of those releases came commentaries. So I listened to 6 commentary tracks to prepare for this episode.
Wow. How many hours is that?
So I watched the unrated cut, the director's cut. Then I watched 6 commentaries. So 16 hours?
Wow, yeah.
Just so much information.
You're very dedicated.
So it was directed by Darren Lynn Bousman, who directed the second one. He had written the script for part 2. It was a different movie called The Gas House or something like that. They changed that script to include the Saw characters and be in that world, and they made it Saw 2. So they brought him back to direct Saw 3. And at first, Lee Winnell and James Wan didn't want to have anything to do with Saw 3. But when one of the producers, Hoffman, of the original 3 people that owned Twisted Pictures, passed away, they decided that they would come back together and make Saw 3. So we get the character Hoffman, which is dedicated to that person. His first name is Mark, which honors another member of the Twisted Pictures, because that guy's first name is Mark.
I was wondering something about the Saw franchise. You had mentioned on a previous podcast about how if a movie's making money, of course they're going to make a sequel or another movie later. So how did Saw do in the theaters? How much money was it pulling in? How are they justifying making 11 total movies here in the franchise soon?
So each one independently is going to make a lot of money. This one had a budget of $10 million and made $164.9 million. So with that much profit, they're going to make a 4th one.
Very popular.
The original Saw movie made $104 million off of a $1.2 million budget. So that's insane.
Yeah, that is insane. Now, it looks like the further the Saw movies go along in the franchise, they're pulling in more money. I think the critics liked
But they also used more money to make it.
Oh, right.
Yeah, well, the critic response might have gone lower. The first Saw film isn't very gory, although people remember it as very gory. We had to imagine a lot of it. We don't actually see the foot get cut off in the first Saw. We kind of hear it, and we imagine it happening. But it's not as bloody as everything else. And then the traps that people were being tortured in that didn't survive in the background, like the wire razor trap and the room with the guy burned himself alive in, it was only shown in really quick flash cuts of still frames, and so it wasn't as graphic. Whereas these, people were really honing in on those graphic kills, so we really focused on, and I will say that in the unrated version of Saw 3, and then even the director's cut, we got more and more gore as it went on.
It was extremely gruesome. Yeah, let's get talking about this, because the first couple of scenes I thought were extremely gruesome. And also, I wanted to mention that I don't know why, but at some point, it might have been because of the circumstance in my life or how I was feeling at the time, but I had to actually look away And I rarely do that in movies. It was just insane how much gore and gruesomeness
Yeah.
in the first couple of scenes. Here.
Shawnee Smith, who plays Amanda, has said that she has probably never seen any of the movies all the way through because she is always looking away. Even when doing the commentary, her commentary was with Tobin Bell. The whole time she's like cowering her eyes because there's a lot of things that she just can't watch. But the movie begins, and we get the voices of Amanda and Detective Eric Matthews at the end of part 2, where she says game over and he threatens to kill her. We open in the same bathroom. There's a flashlight on. We see his Smith & Wesson 9mm handgun there from the last movie. He uses his boot to retrieve the weapon, but unfortunately there's no rounds left in it. He does the same thing to get to his flashlight. He's hooked to a big chain just like Adam and Dr. Lawrence were in the first movie, and he also sees the dead body of Xavier from the last movie and Dr. Lawrence Gordon from the first movie. Interestingly, they got that guy who played Xavier, Frankie G, to fly in, to come back, just to lie on the floor. They gave him a speech of like, hey, you know how Tobin Bell just laid on the floor for 6 days to film Saw 1? I think that's you this time. We just need you back just so we can get you there laying on the floor. It's authentic. We see you. And I think we might see him in the movie for one whole second. The flashlight looks over, dead body of Frankie G there, who played Xavier, and then he pans away and we never see him again.
I thought the flashlight part was a nice touch because at one point he shines the flashlight and sees the sawed-off foot.
Oh, yeah.
And then he just sort of like comes to this realization that, okay, this guy had to saw through his leg to get out of the shackle. But he has a different idea, a different approach.
Yeah. He prepares to cut off his foot, putting his sock into his mouth to bite down on. He's sobbing that whole time. He can't do it. He throws it, and then he looks around to see Adam's body, as well as the lid to the toilet that Adam used to kill Zepp in the first movie. So he uses this lid to beat the crap out of his foot, breaking it up to get the chain free, and then we cut to the title card, which says Saw 3.
Yeah, interesting approach. Perhaps better than sawing through the leg, though. But what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, is there a chance to recover? He mangled his bones so much.
Surgery.
They might, yeah, right?
Lots and lots of surgery, but I mean...
But he would still have a foot at the end.
But yeah, I think that's... Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. The MPAA went back and forth. They resubmitted the movie 6 times. And while I've read in other movies that they don't tell you what they don't like about it, why it's getting the NC-17 rating, apparently they had really good conversations with Bousman, the director, about what they didn't like about a scene. And they negotiated down to like him hearing the foot getting hit a number of times. So I think by the time we get back to the director's cut, they kept adding more back in. So in the theatrical, there might have been 2 times where he hit his foot, or in the director's cut, there might have been 8 times he hit his foot.
Oh, he hit his foot more and more.
Yeah, right. And each cut, they add more in.
Yeah. I thought also, I always liked the background sounds in these movies, but there were some violin strings playing while he was doing it. I thought that was a nice touch.
So we cut to a SWAT team having to torch their way inside a door, and we see that Detective Rigg has returned for this movie, even though it's just a small part. Inside, he sees all the mayhem that has happened, and he tells them to call Carrie, which is the detective that was in charge of the Saw cases from the last movie. We cut to her on the scene, and she's trying to get all the information, but she really wants to know if Eric Matthews was a victim. And I sort of get it because she's the one that got him interested in the case. Even though he didn't agree to do it for her, she was the one like, come on, you could help us on this case. So he got involved because of her. Inside, we see Detective Mark Hoffman, who in this movie is credited as Forensics Hoffman, but we know that later on in the franchise, Hoffman plays a much bigger role. Hoffman says it's not Eric Matthews, and Carrie comes to see that all the body parts are spread all over the classroom. Hoffman explains that the man was held in this middle school room by several chains, and we cut to seeing him in the chains, some in his arms, sides, and one connecting his lower jaw.
But not only just chains, he had like a ring.
Big giant hoop rings.
Body.
Yeah, they're like 4-inch hoops. You'd have to rip out of your body, which is insane.
I was going to say, one of our friends when we were younger, at one point, about a decade ago, he was involved with a group of people. He used to practice body suspension. And I don't know if you know much about body suspension. Basically, someone would be hung up a few feet in the air on what essentially were like sterilized meat hooks.
Yeah.
And many people have done like body suspension for various reasons, such as alternatives for more harmful behaviors, getting over addictions, meditation purposes, etc. It's very risky. There are risks involved, bloody, nerve damage, infection. But those who do body suspension claim that the benefits outweigh the risks. There was a band member from James Addiction and Red Hot Chili Peppers who's done it. He was addicted to heroin and he started doing body suspension on these hooks. It sounds insane, but I was watching the scene just thinking about hooks and the human flesh and sort of how these rings are attached to this guy.
Yeah, that's crazy. I would say let's remember this conversation when we get to Saw 7.
Okay. Ooh. Body suspension was really popular around the time these movies were coming out. I think it was just kind of getting steam. I don't think I'll ever do it, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
you've got to, like,
me.
proliferate a hole in your skin and attach yourself and hang from these hooks.
All right. So Billy the Puppet appears on the video and says that our victim's name is Troy, and he spent most of his life in prison, and accuses him of being more comfortable in chains. 11 chains hang from the wall and ceiling, and each with a large metal ring that pierces through his hands, shoulders, Achilles tendon, arms, exterior obliques, while one hook is through his lower jaw. In front of him is a nail bomb that ticks down, and to survive he must rip all the chains in his flesh before the time runs out, and he only has a minute and 30 seconds to do so. Hoffman makes the comment here that all Troy has to do is rip through the chains before the timer went off, and we cut to seeing Troy try to do this, and he gets 10 out before he's stuck with just the one in his jaw, which seems to me like it's not survivable. Like you couldn't rip a metal ring that it would remove your whole jaw out. I don't think you'd be able to live past that.
I was thinking, like, how deep is it in the flesh, too? How did they get the ring in there to begin with?
Right.
But then later in the scene when the police are there, I see there's, like, a gap in the rings. But he didn't have much time. He had to, like, work quickly.
Right.
This was the scene where I had to actually look away for a little bit.
Okay.
I thought it was just it was so gruesome. But I went back and watched it again, but it was just, like, the first time, it was just too much for me.
Right. Carrie tells Rigg that she's having nightmares about Eric Matthews and blames herself, and he tells her it isn't her fault. Hoffman clearly can hear this, but appears to be letting them speak on their own. Rigg asks how Jigsaw can do this while he's on his deathbed, and Carrie says that she doesn't think it was him because it doesn't fit his pattern. Hoffman jumps in to ask what that means, and she asks how Rigg had to get in the room, and he said they had to cut down the door, and she asks why. And Hoffman, either not understanding or maybe for another reason, says that a woman heard an explosion. She points out that saw traps are made to be escapable within a time limit. There would have to have been a way out, and Troy, who is not armed with a blowtorch, would not have been able to get out of this stuck room, even if he freed himself from the chains.
She's on to him.
Right, yeah. Well,
or on to someone
she's
here.
on this that Saw has a partner.
Yeah.
Yeah. The tech person then says that they were able to get the tape out of the VCR without any damage from the bomb, and we cut to Carrie in her own house taking a bath. And this was not a cut in film. Everything in this movie was filmed in one giant warehouse. So Carrie's apartment is right next door to the classroom. So the actress playing Carrie went from her police uniform to that bathtub in a matter of seconds. So she's stripping and running to jump in that bathtub. And the director say you could still see the water moving a little too much when she's in that bathtub because she ran in there and jumped in there super fast.
Why did they do it like that?
Because Saw has these transitions, and they've been doing this, right? Like in the second Saw movie, right? Darren Lynn Bousman did this.
Pins up or down,
yeah,
or
and
left
then all of a
to
sudden
right.
they're in the next one, right? So Eric Matthews goes from his bedroom in police uniform, walks out the door, is immediately in the crime scene without a cut in part 2. So director Bousman just keeps doing this throughout the movies.
Wow.
They want these continuing takes because
My favorite one is coming later. But
okay,
yes,
they
I
have
know
some
what
really
you
good
mean.
ones, right?
Yeah. I was gonna say one other thing that I noticed here is like on Saw and Saw 2, we saw that on these victims there was a jigsaw piece cut from them.
Right.
I didn't notice the jigsaw piece. I might have missed it, but they didn't show that cut from the victim. And then at this point, because of what you previously said, I was wondering, is this actually a jigsaw victim? Because there's no puzzle piece cut from this person.
Yeah, I think there isn't. And I think we have to learn that there isn't, yeah. So later on, Carrie's on her bed, and she has a video playing of Billy the Puppet on the TV. Then the footage changes to footage from her own house in real time. So she notices she's being watched on camera. She goes to her drawer and pulls out a Sig Saucer P226 9mm semi-automatic handgun and fires 5 shots into the closet. In the commentary, somebody jokes about, oh my gosh, it was her grandmother surprising her with cookies. Happy birthday. Like now she's dead. I thought that was the funniest joke ever.
Yeah, I was also in the mirror. She sees an image of Detective Matthews, and I was wondering, because of what happened in the previous movie with Amanda being pulled in, I was wondering, is Detective Matthews somehow involved now in perhaps killing victim? I mean, he's mysteriously gone. There are hints of him being around, like this reflection in the mirror. And since I was watching it through this for the first time, it was difficult to say what happened to these missing persons. Like, I was pretty sure that John had survived after being left in the van at the end of the last movie.
Right.
And I was curious if Detective Matthews was somehow involved here.
Sure. I will say that with the knowledge I have of all the movies, there's definitely people we've seen before that are, but some of them won't get revealed for a long time, which I think is awesome about these movies. All right, so she goes to the closet. She sees where the camera is, and while she's looking into it, someone in a pig mask comes from behind her, and we get a jump cut, and then it fades to black.
Yeah, her trap, it's an angel trap, and it's another very gruesome type trap.
It's pretty horrific. She wakes up suspended in air in a trap that has been dubbed the angel trap. Billy Puppet comes on the video again, telling her that she identifies more with corpses than humans, and explains the trap. Detective Carrie hangs, bound in a leather harness locked by padlock. A heavy device on her back, resembling folded wings, connects the 12 metal brackets hooked into her rib cage. The device spreads its arms, tearing her chest apart. She would have to escape within 60 seconds, and the key dangles in a beaker of acid suspended before her. So she takes her a bit before she's able to stick her hands in there. She does have a scene where she jiggles the thing to try to see if she could just pour the acid out. This is because someone on set was like, why doesn't she just pour the acid out? So they had to make it look like it wasn't tippable so that she couldn't do that to answer audience's questions, right? Which Lee Winnell would say that someone in the audience was always going to ask those questions. There's a part where he mentions Steve by name. He's like, sorry, Steve, we outsmarted you. In another scene, which I'll talk about, which is hilarious.
I didn't do anything.
I'm telling you, he called you out, man, which is funny. So she tries to reach in. She burns her hand. And after a couple of times, she gets her hand all the way in, gets the key out. She does unlock the padlock, but it doesn't release her. Right before she dies, someone walks into the room. We don't get to see their whole body. We only see waist and below. And she says, you, and then her ribs are ripped out, killing her.
That was either spine chilling or rib ripping. I don't know.
Yeah. Then we meet Lynn, who I think may be named because of director Darren Lynn Bousman. I'm not sure. No one ever mentioned that in the commentary, but it's spelled the same way. Who is sitting on the edge of a bed with Chris, and he's lying on the bed still. They act as if their relationship is having problems, and she says she has to go into work, that the hospital changed her schedule. He asks if she wants a shower first, and she says she'll just take a shower at work. Chris tries to talk to her, and she asks what he wants. He says a divorce. She walks out, and we cut to the hospital where patients are being brought in via gurney. Lynn is in the locker room, and she doesn't want to move when she is paged to a trauma. A nurse has to come and get her because she seems lethargic, and she doesn't move until she sees it's a small child in need. She walks in as another doctor is ready to do surgery, but she has a different idea how to treat the victim, which ends up working in the end. She saves the child's life. Right after this, the same nurse gets after Lynn for her unwillingness to move, and then we see Lynn in the locker room when she is changed, ready to go home. It doesn't take long before Lynn figured out that she's locked inside the room. She attempts to call out for help, both by yelling and from her flip phone, but then the call is interrupted by a person in a pig mask, and she is kidnapped. A couple fun things in the scene in her locker room is a drawing of a pig that her daughter did. It's in the locker, which is a pig theme here. And in one of the versions of the script, she doesn't save the child, and people on the set argued about if she let the child die, would people in the audience care about her anymore, or care if she lived, if she's not willing to save a child's life. So they made it where she saves the child's life, but then we see her taking pills and not really caring about work, so that we know that for her to be tested by Jigsaw, she has to be having some problem.
That's an interesting point that you make, because I was thinking of British tragedies where you start to like the character's likable, and then the character dies in the end.
Right.
So that's almost foreshadowing what might happen to her later.
Right. So we cut to someone in a black coat with her hood up walking into an area that looks like a factory and has supplies inside a grocery sack. Inside we see at least 3 versions of the pig's mask. A person walks by some monitors and turns them on, and we see that Lynn is passed out tied to a chair. We get more lights coming on, and we see many work areas that look like they're all used to design traps. Lynn wakes up and tries to struggle, and she sees the person pull off the hood, and we reveal that it's Amanda. Amanda pulls out a big knife and asks Lynn if she's going to behave. She unlocks the wheelchair and wheel her into another room. Inside the next room are many medical supplies and a makeshift hospital bed. We see John Kramer with an oxygen mask on.
So John is alive and Amanda's with him.
Yeah. Who would kill off their main villain of a franchise? John knows who
I thought he was dead the last movie, or the previous movie.
A lot of people thought he was dead, but they were like, no, he's smiling there at the end. How can you be smiling when you're dead?
No, I suspected that he was already alive. Yeah,
right.
He survived the van.
Yeah, and Lee Winnell says they could have been really cheap and say, oh, he's in remission, he got cured from cancer. But they said the audience is too smart. They would have felt that it was too fake, and they had to follow the course of action that they laid out and wrote in this character. If his motivation is he's dying from an irreversible cancer, let's not come up with a magical cure to just save him. So that's kind of how they wrote this. So John knows who she is. He was once a guest at her hospital. She doesn't remember him at first, but when Amanda drops the file in her lap, she does. Though she says that she's seen him on TV recently as the serial killer Jigsaw. John says he doesn't have long to live and asks if she agrees with the diagnosis. And she starts to rattle off a lot of medical terminology, and John points out that he doesn't understand the way she's speaking. So she tells him in more easy to understand words that she agrees that he doesn't have long to live. John tells Lynn that death is a surprise party unless you're already dead on the inside. He implies that she may already be dead on the inside because she swallows antidepressants, turns her back on her husband, and neglects her child. She asks him what he wants from her, and he says that he wants to play a game, and the rules are simple. As Amanda does some tweaks on Lynn's trap, John tells Lynn that if she breaks the rules, the consequences are death. He tells her that she is being tested, and her test is to see if she's willing to keep someone alive. While he's explaining this, Amanda brings over a big metal neck collar with 5 shotgun shells, each with their own trigger fastened to a lock to keep it shut.
I thought this was an ingenious collar type device trap, and when Amanda placed it around Dr. Lynn's neck, she seemed a little bit ecstatic or happy about it. And later we learned that Amanda actually built this trap.
Yeah, and Lee Winnell jokes that they were looking through the storeroom of Mad Max and Beyond the Thunderdome and stole this collar from that set, which is pretty funny.
But it's a really cool collar.
Yeah. John tells her that the collar is linked to her heart rate and automatically goes off if he flatlines or if she gets out of range. Amanda gets a key off the wall and puts it around her neck, which I always thought was for this trap, but I've heard many different theories online, and they actually answer in the commentary, so we'll discuss it at the end. Lynn asks how she's supposed to keep John alive, and Amanda starts arming each shotgun shell, telling her that out there on those monitors is a man who's playing another game. Lynn just needs to keep John alive long enough for that other person to finish their game, and if she can do this, she can live. John tells Lynn that she is a critical piece to a puzzle, which it could be his final test. While he says this, we see Amanda has a big pair of scissors. She's pressing it against the inside of her thumb because I guess she likes pain. Jigsaw tells Amanda to start their game, and we cut to Jeff about 28 minutes into the movie, at least in the uncut version, and he's another piece of this puzzle. Jeff is stuck in a large wooden box and starts to break it open before calling out for help. He finds one of Jigsaw's tape players, and he gets to hear what is in store for him. Jigsaw says that Jeff has become a shell of his former self, consumed with hatred and vengeance. He goes on to tell the audience, really, that Jeff's only son was killed by a driver who was set free after a hasty trial. He says that Jeff will now be on trial and will face a series of tests, and in each one he will have to suffer, but will also be given the chance to forgive. When he completes the test, he will come face to face with a man responsible for his child, and we know that there's a double meaning here at the end of this movie, and we see that Jeff is suspended in the air by a forklift. He's about 7 feet in the air. The tape tells him that meeting that man will be his final test, and we could see if he could forgive him. He then tells him that he only has 2 hours because at that point the doors will lock and this place will become his tomb. Jeff struggles until he knocks the box onto the ground and knocks himself out. We cut to a memory of him holding a Smith & Wesson Model 10 revolver, imagining the day when he would come across the man responsible for the death of his son. We then see a time where he went to his daughter's room and he's very angry because she had gone and taken one of her brother's stuffed animals, which was a pig. He then sits in his son's room and looks defeated. That's when his daughter comes in to apologize, and he says, "What would mommy think if she saw us like this?" On the first viewing, I thought that meant that their mom was dead.
Yeah, and I thought maybe it was a drunk driving accident or something where maybe the mother and the son died. So Jeff is clearly like not in the right state of mind though. He's got mental issues because of what's happened in his past with the drunk driver. He has homicidal ideations in which he's thinking about killing the drunk driver. He pulls out a gun. And I really like that scene though, where it's showing that he's mentally unstable. And in the background, there's like creepy child laughter happening. And it was a bit of suspense for the viewer. And I thought that maybe when he was in the crate on the forklift, based on what John had sort of said on the tape, maybe they had somehow also abducted the drunk driver and placed him in the building.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that there's going to be some other people he's going to encounter in this building on his journey in the game. You mentioned the pig again. I really liked how Saw 3 brought in a lot of like piggy masks and the little pig details like in the locker and the child's toy.
Yeah. So he tells his daughter to get ready for school, and when she leaves, he gets up and we see this gun is sitting next to him on the bed. So we can't tell if maybe he was debating ending his own life or not. Then he gets up, he goes to close the closet door, and when he does, it reveals a pig masked person is in there, and this is the point that he was taken.
More piggy abductions. When I saw the gun on the bed and the previous scene that I really liked where it was showing his unstable mental condition, I thought that maybe he had the gun there because he was contemplating going after this drunk driver somehow.
It's possible, yeah.
But yeah, you make a good point. Maybe he's thinking about ending it.
He just looked so self-wallowed.
Yeah.
Jeff wakes up, not sure how long he's been out. He gets up and he has trouble standing because he appears dizzy. He picks a piece of wood as a weapon, and he makes it down the hall where there's a little note in a box which says, "Open the door, Jeff." Under it is a ripped photo. The section of the photo has Jeff in it. And then the last thing in that box is a key. Jeff very cautiously continues as if there is no time limit. We cut to Lynn, who does some motor function tests with John as Amanda watches from outside the room before coming in to tell John the game has begun. Lynn tells Amanda that John's brain is hemorrhaging and he needs to be taken to a hospital, which they argue about. Lynn wants to know if they have drugs from a hospital, and Amanda reminds her that if he dies, she dies. As Amanda threatens Lynn, John tells Amanda that she needs to give the doctor room to follow the rules of the game. That's when he starts to seize and vomit, and Lynn enlists Amanda's help in holding a mask over John's face while Lynn searches for Ativan, which they don't have, since it's a controlled substance and it would be hard to get.
And also, who knows? Amanda might have remission.
Yeah. Lynn comes back over to relieve Amanda, who's not handling this well at all, and Lynn holds John's face until the seizing passes. Interestingly, Tobin Bell did talk to a doctor, ask what do patients do when they seize, so he got to learn about the way to shake, the way to drool, what happens to his eyes, so he could play the role really well.
Wow. Yeah, that guy's a phenomenal actor.
Yeah, I mean, he laid on the floor for 6 days. Lynn goes to Amanda, who has left the room crying, asking if she's ready to take him to a hospital now because he needs surgery. Amanda says okay, but only the surgery part because they aren't going anywhere. Lynn tells her that she needs anesthetic and a power drill. We cut to Jeff, who is creeping along, and I mean, he spends minutes until he's to the next room. He finds a door with words written on it that say, "Face your fears." When he opens the door, he enters a freezer, and inside is a naked woman hanging by the wrist. Which is the point when I'm watching the movie for this podcast that my child comes in asking for a Switch game when there's a naked woman on the screen, which I thought was funny. So Jeff starts freaking out, and the woman starts to beg him to let her go under the impression that he's doing this to her. He tries the key to free her, but it doesn't work. He finds another tape recorder in the corner. On that tape, Jigsaw lets him know that the woman's name is Danica Scott, and she was the only witness to the death of his son, but fled the scene instead of staying to give a statement. Jigsaw tells him that he can grant her the gift of life before she freezes to death. He tells him that the key is behind some pipes. He sees the key but doesn't go to grab it, taking time to decide if he wants to save her or not. That's when water jets start to spray on her, which freeze due to the extreme low temperatures. After the water stops, she tells him she didn't do anything, and he starts jumping at her saying, like, "Oh yeah, that's right, you didn't do anything after my son was killed. You could have done something." She begs him. She's saying she's dying, and he yells back that his son died. That's when a second round of water sprays on her. She screams, and Jeff turns away. She apologizes, saying that she made a mistake, and the water starts for a third time. Jeff finally is ready to go get the key. He has some trouble reaching it. He tries to break out the door again. Then he sees a layer of ice covering her. He touches her face, and the ice starts to crack, which scares him, and he tries for the key again. This time he puts his face against the bars, which freezes his skin to the bar. He's able to get the key, and he has to rip his skin free from his face. But now the lock is completely covered in ice, and he's unable to free her.
Yeah, but he actually did try to save her, but he was way too late.
He's really slow.
Yeah,
it's molasses Jeff.
I was thinking that
wait and see what happens, Jeff.
he takes a long time making these decisions, and that was sort of how this game was engineered. He's working through the grief of his son gone, and he's having a lot of trouble getting past it.
So, yeah, you're right. Interestingly, this scene had a lot of problems with the MPAA. The director had a conversation with them. It's like, look, she could wear a tank top and panties, but if she did, once the water started spraying, it becomes about a woman in a wet t-shirt. And he said, when she's already there completely naked, the scene isn't filmed sexual. Jeff doesn't look at her that way. Nothing about this scene is about sex. It's about the grief about this guy's son dying and her not helping. So it was interesting that once he explained that to the board for reviewing the movie, they actually had no problem with the scene. He just had to explain it.
That explains a lot. I know my emotions as a man, and as soon as she would start getting wet with the t-shirt on, my thoughts might have changed, but I didn't even think about that. Right, because she was already naked from the beginning.
Right. They said the casting was awkward, though, because you have women come in the room. It's like, great, could you strip, please? And they're like, okay, I'm looking at her eyes. Like, it's just like, it's weird, right?
Yeah.
All right, now in the next room, he finds another box with the next note reading, "One bullet will end it all." And the other side of the note is a picture, and this ripped portion is of his son, and inside he finds a single 9mm round. Lynn walks around the factory to see all the saw traps. She looks around to find a phone, but when she reaches for it, the reverse bear trap goes off, scaring her, but not doing any harm. Amanda is standing right next to her, which scares her again. Lynn tries in vain to talk Amanda out of letting her do the surgery. Amanda tells her that she understands it's hard, that there's so many things in this room that could kill her, gives her an axe, positions it at her head, and tells Lynn to kill her. But then Amanda walks through all the ways that she would be screwed afterwards. If John hears that she dies, he might rip out the heart monitor and she dies. Even if he doesn't, she would have to try to find the sensor and turn it off so that she could walk more than 30 feet away from it without her head exploding. Then she's like, or you could just try to disarm it, which would be tricky since she built the thing. Amanda takes an axe and asks if Lynn has everything for surgery. Lynn says that she has the tools to cut a man open, but not the tools to save a life.
I like this part because Amanda picks up the reverse bear trap and says, "You would be surprised what tools could save a life." Because that was the trap that she was stuck in, and she changed her life afterwards.
Right. And when she picks it up, she puts it down, and we have another one of these cuts, although this one was a cut, to where John is painting Billy the Puppet for the first time and setting up Amanda's trap in the first movie. So we get a glimpse of how the scene played out in the first Saw movie We see John waiting for her at her apartment. We see her returning for him to tell her not to be afraid because her new life has just begun. We cut to the current Amanda sitting on her bed looking inside a lockbox of memories. And then she goes to tell John that Jeff made it out of the freezer room and he did try to save her. And I'm like, but did he?
I noticed, though, that Amanda seems very emotional. And I thought that was a little bit odd. Like, she seems way too attached to John and very distraught about his condition. And I think that the flashback to the first Saw movie was sort of a reminder of John and Amanda's previous ties and maybe some of the things she's worked through, but she seems way too emotionally attached to John during this movie to me.
Yeah, I mean, he's her mentor. He's like a new father figure. Yeah, I mean, he might be her only real friend. We see Lynn preparing to drill for surgery. Then John tells Amanda that there are things that he needs her to do, and he tells her to find an envelope with her name on it. Amanda lets John know that Lynn is about to do surgery on him and to relieve the pressure on his brain. She then asks if he chose her because she's the best, and John gives a weird smile and says, "That's one reason I chose her," which I love. We cut to Jeff, who would lose in a race with a turtle because he's taking like 2.5 steps. Then he takes a break to look around, and then 2.5 steps, and then he takes a break to look around.
I think this is like still showing how he's taking a long time with this grieving process too. That's the way that
He
I
also
got it.
can't
But
walk.
He's so slow. And he's slow with this.
He has
with his
2 hour
decisions.
limit. He has a 2 hour limit.
He's like,
At the end of this hallway, there's a light that's flickering, and we see the Billy's tricycles there. When he finally arrives at the other side of the room, he sees Billy the puppet lying on the ground, and this gives him flashbacks of his son lying on the floor. He picks up Billy for a closer look, and it starts laughing at him, so he drops it. Then he gets an angry look at his face.
I thought that was a nice touch, though. The puppet left on the ground like his son, and then sort of this flashback for him of what
Right.
happened.
And Lee Winnell said that it's like obligatory now. He has to have Billy somewhere in the movie because people come to see Billy. So if it was just him laying on the floor and then they made it work with the past of the child, really work because he's like, where'd I put Billy in this movie? He gets to the next door with a message, time to let go, and we watch from inside as he forces his way in, which dislodges a wire connected via a series of pulleys, which starts the trap. And this has been labeled the pig vat. Jeff seems to have... Yeah, more pigs. Jeff seems to have learned nothing from the last room because he responds too late when the door closes, as if he didn't know the door was going to close. Then we have a man that starts shouting, "Help me, please," and this guy basically is saying this or similar things the entire scene. Jeff starts looking around the room, moving cautiously, trying to figure out what's going on. He sees a tape player tied to a string. He climbs a ladder to get to see what it is, and we see that Judge Halden, who presided over his son's case, is at the bottom of a big metal cylinder tied down by his neck. Jeff plays the tape, which explains that if he wants, he can free the judge, but to do so, he has to burn all his son's belongings that he's clung on to this whole time. The key is inside those possessions and can free the judge. And it's like a crazy choice. Oh, okay, the man that I hate because he let this guy free, or burn all the things I remember my kid by.
And he's still working through this grieving process, so he doesn't want to let go of his son's possessions just yet.
So the trap starts up and we see pigs' carcasses come by full of maggots, and they did use real maggots in this movie. They brought him into a room. They're dropped onto saw blades.
Wait, those were real maggots?
Those were real maggots.
No, not the piggies. They're dead and decaying pigs, but they're not real pigs. They're real
maggots. You got it. Yeah. The trap starts up. Carcasses full of pigs are brought into the room, dropped into saw blades, and fill the cylinder with a liquidy mess. Since the judge is tied to the bottom, it wouldn't take long for him to drown. Of course, wait and see Jeff stands there for a bit, processing what is happening. That's when the judge says that he's a criminal court judge. Jeff can't do this. High and mighty Jeff takes time to give another lecture on how the judge gave that guy that killed his son only 6 months. The judge tries to say that he can help Jeff see if he can get the sentence extended, but since the guy was already let out of prison, it's too late.
Now, when all this pig slosh is coming in, I don't know what else to call it. It's coming into the vat, and I remembered when Jeff first came into the room, he made an expression like there was a horrible stench in the room.
Oh, sure.
And yeah, with all these dead and decaying pigs around and being cut up, I can only imagine the stench was unbearable at times.
Yeah. Jeff slowly climbs down the ladder because safety first, and looks at the incinerator with all his son's belongings.
Now, I noticed in this scene, Jeff's been hesitating a lot.
Yeah.
But it seemed like he was even longer
Yeah.
hesitating here with the judge.
We get some flashbacks from Christmas, where it appears that his son got most of that stuff. Jeff tries to break the door off to get the stuff, and when it doesn't seem to work, he yells at the judge, who is still begging for help, telling him to shut the fuck up. He even kicks the tank. He finally hits the button on the incinerator after standing there for 62 seconds.
You counted this?
I timed it. And he starts burning all his stuff. He retrieves the key and actually makes it back in time to release the judge, which on the first watch, I was shocked.
Yeah, he managed to save the judge. But I feel like he's still working through his grieving process,
Sure.
but in a very dramatic way
It takes
here.
a long time to get over things. Then we cut to Lynn, who's preparing for surgery. She's cleaning the tools, washing her hands, and she shaves John's head. Amanda tells John that he made it through the second one and the judge is alive. John says the most shocking thing of this whole movie, not really, faster than I expected. And I was like, really? Oh.
This guy's been taking forever.
I know, right? Lynn,
I didn't catch the humor on that when I'm watching it, but now I think it's hilarious.
Lynn tells John that she's going to cut a piece away of his skull to relieve the pressure, which will vastly improve his motor skills. As she starts, Amanda asks if he's going to get a general anesthetic, but Lynn tells her that he needs to be awake for this procedure. Before she starts, Lynn's hands shake, and then she takes a second to calm herself before cutting a circle of his scalp away. She tries to ask Amanda for help, but she's too scared to help. She lays out several clamps to stop the bleeding. Eventually, Amanda does help getting alcohol with a giant 50cc syringe, and they pour it around the area. The director liked to joke in the commentary, he wondered if John got drunk from this, like pouring alcohol directly onto the brain.
That's interesting. Yeah,
Right.
it's isopropyl alcohol, but you can still get drunk from it.
Yeah,
No,
that's not good. It's dangerous.
Very, very dangerous. Yeah, it's poisonous. Toxic.
Lynn tells John that he's going to hear a lot of noise, and we watch as she drills a few holes into his skull. She then uses a saw to cut away the piece. Through this whole process, we are worried about his heart rate, though I would say that my heart rate went up just from watching it. And the MPAA had a lot of problems with this scene. They asked if it was necessary. Could we just allude to it? Do we really have to show it? And they had to fight to keep as much as they were allowed to show in the theatrical version.
Now, surprisingly for me, this scene wasn't too bad.
Okay.
Maybe it was because I was thinking, oh, this is healthcare. It's, it's just not like the scene at the beginning of the movie where the guy had the chains and the loops in him, but
Sure.
like I didn't feel like this one was that bad.
Okay. Afterwards, she asks John to raise his hand and flex his fingers, and while he tries, his hand drops and all his stats drop as well. We go into John's mind where he remembers a woman in a park on a sunny day, and we get to know more about this woman in the sequels. Also in the background is Obi from the second movie, who died in the furnace, with a fun little cameo. But if you don't notice he's there, you might just miss him. Lynn runs over to the oxygen mask, and John's stats come back up a bit, and we see in his memory John is recording the woman on his handheld video camera, and they kiss while telling each other they love each other. When John starts to come back, he grabs Lynn's arm. Still in the flashback in his head, he says, "I love you." But Amanda comes in, doesn't know what's in his brain, and thinks he's telling Lynn, "I love you," which really bothers Amanda. So she goes out to her bed and pulls out a kit with gauze, tape, alcohol, a lighter, and several blades. She has a memory where John is giving her instructions and how she will follow him. Parts of these are that she will no longer cut herself, and he gives her an envelope.
I thought this was showing how John was helping Amanda move from her past life and with her addictions and such.
Right. And I think they talk about in the commentary with Shawnee Smith, who knows her character the best of anybody. She's really studied the character, and the writer and director really got to hear the feedback of the characters on, hey, my character wouldn't do this, I think they would do this, and they got to change a lot of things up. Shawnee Smith would say that Amanda was first addicted to cutting herself, then got addicted to drugs, and now is addicted to trapping people. So she's not doing drugs because she has a new addiction.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, now she's got a piggy costume. She's abducting people. And
Yeah.
she was notching her leg every time she was abducting someone.
Yeah, well, I don't think she's done it in a long time.
Oh,
I don't think she's doing it when she's abducting people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, she had like 5 or so notches
I think
on
that's
her
just
leg.
from her cut herself.
Oh, man. So this is just more showing Amanda moving beyond her past life. But
Right.
you make a good point that she's moved beyond her past life, and now she's sort of addicted to this abducting people.
Right. So we see another memory where she was the one who kidnapped Adam in the first movie. Then she goes to the sink to grab a much bigger knife, loosens her belt and pulls down her pants, and uses a knife to cut into her leg. We zoom in, we see many other scars. You're right. Now, Shawnee Smith fought to have this scene in there, and she jokingly thought everybody would get excited because she pulls her pants down. But the director listened to her when she said she really wanted a scene where she showed that she's like unstable by her cutting herself. So it wasn't in the script, but she added it.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was a nice touch because, and I wasn't thinking anything about her pulling her pants down. I was more focused on the fact that she's notching her leg.
It's insane.
Each time she's abducting a victim. We also see that she was involved more than I had originally thought with the abductions in the first Saw movie.
She continues to remember, and we see the events right up to the first bathroom trap. She enters, dragging Adam in as John is putting in the final touches of his makeup. We learn some cool things here in the scene. We see John paint the glow-in-the-dark X. Amanda fills up the tub and puts a shackle in place for Adam and puts him in the tub. We see John inject himself with a drug that will slow his heart rate and relax his muscles, which will help him remain still the entire time. Then Amanda takes all the extra stuff out with her and turns off the lights and closes the door behind John as he lays on the floor. Right before John does lay down, though, he looks in the mirror and says, "Let the games begin." And he's talking to Zepp here because he knows Zepp is looking in the camera. Which makes it a little weird because the director's been pointing out, why didn't Zepp go in and just attack John if he knew John was alive? Because the rules are he's got to kill. Adam has to die and Dr. Lawrence has to die if they didn't follow the rules. But he could have just killed John and been free, but I guess he wouldn't have gotten his antidote. These are all questions. But the scene answered a lot of questions which the audience had. How did John never move? How did he apply the glow in the dark? And if he was dying of cancer, how did he have the energy to do all this? Lee Winnell says in the commentary that many people think he always had written all 3 movies before they started filming, but he did not. He said when he wrote part 2, he says that things became obvious that John would have taken the only person that had survived his game and taken her as his assistant. Then when he revisited the scene while making part 3, he realized that it could have only gone down that Amanda helped him in the game, although when he wrote part 1, he never imagined that Jigsaw had any help. Which is really cool. Like, it really works.
Yeah.
So we cut back to Amanda taping up her wound. We see Lynn putting back on her wedding ring, and it looks like she's now cherishing what she previously had taken for granted.
Hey, John's therapy is working.
Yeah, right? Amanda walks in really close to John and starts to whisper in his ear. Lynn tells her that John can't hear her and that he doesn't even know she's there. This sets off Amanda, and she starts to strangle Lynn and reaches for a Smith & Wesson 5946, which is the same gun that Eric Matthews had at the start of the movie. John regains consciousness and tells Amanda to put it away and tells her to leave the room. John apologizes for Amanda, saying that she swims in his sea.
When he did that, I was like, okay, how much was this guy actually listening and how much was he aware of?
Right.
It was sort of creepy because Dr. Lin thought he was totally out as a patient.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, hey, I'm here.
And what's also interesting is that it was written in the script that Amanda was going to pull out the gun and point it to her head, but everybody on the set were like, but if Amanda does that now, she's already gone over the top. Where would she go from there? Like, already pulling out the gun. So let's not have her pull out the gun yet, which I think really worked. He adds that Amanda will be his closest thing he's ever come to a connection, to being understood about what he is trying to achieve here, and then says that her emotions are her weakness. We cut to another memory of a time when Amanda visited the bathroom. We see Lawrence's foot, and we see Adam on the other side of the room. But right before this, in the director's cut, so the longest movie, right? We had the theatrical, the unrated, now the director's cut. There is a scene where a ghost of Adam seems to appear to Amanda, and it seems supernatural until Amanda wakes up and it was a dream. That motivated her to go in this scene right here where she walks into the bathroom. She claims to be helping Adam, who is still alive, but then she puts a plastic wrap over his head to start strangling him. Now, in the commentary, Leigh Whannell jokes that he almost died while filming this scene, and it adds that it's funny when you're pretending to die, you start struggling around and pull to get free. Those are the same things you would do when you actually start dying, and Shawnee Smith, not knowing he wasn't acting anymore, just kept on trying to kill him. But he says it's sort of a joke, but he was really afraid at some points that they were going too far. We cut to Jeff and the judge, who are now moving into the next room. The judge barfs out some pig soup, and Jeff walks up to the next door, which reads, "Here's your chance." Another box has a note, "One step closer to your revenge," and on the back is a ripped piece of the picture, and this time it's his daughter.
So he has 3 pieces of picture now. I was counting this. And he had his picture with the key, and then he had his son picture with the bullet, and now he's got his daughter's picture with
And it came with a magazine for a gun.
Okay.
Yeah. So he puts the bullet that he had into the magazine. The judge tells him that no sentence, even 500 years or even death, would ever take Jeff's pain away. He says that vengeance doesn't solve anything and it only makes pain greater. Jeff puts his daughter next to the other 2 pieces in the picture. He's like, somehow they're getting taped together. I don't know. And then he kicks the door down, which rips a cord out of the contraption known as the rack.
Yeah, when he kicked open the door, there's somebody in this rack, a man named Timothy.
Yeah. Timothy Young is the man who hit his child with a car. His arms and legs are stuck to a metal crucifix, although his legs are spread apart, not together. And hanging around his neck is a tape player. Timothy starts to scream for help, and Jeff slowly walks towards him to study what he sees in front of him.
And I wanted to say, I thought this was clever. John calls this his favorite, a rack.
I think some of the people behind the scenes called it their favorite as well. Although Leigh Whannell said that his favorite trap in the second movie was the needle trap. In this movie, it was actually the surgery scene, which wasn't a trap, but he just thought it was the most well done and really shook him up. On the tape, Jigsaw said that Timothy is a human with parents who was in medical school and points out that Timothy's life also changed on the day Jeff's son died. John describes the rack, and we see that Timothy's hands, feet are bolted in place. Jigsaw mentions how he could save Timothy, and the judge walks over to see a box with a key inside of it. Unfortunately, that key is hanging to a string which is connected to a 12-gauge double-barrel shotgun. Jigsaw asks Jeff if he's willing to take a bullet for the man that killed his kid.
So when he pulls the key, it triggers the shotgun to shoot.
The judge reaches for the key, and he sees as he pulls it, it would shut off the gun. The judge tells Jeff that he has to help him, and his left arm starts to twist. The judge tries to stop the machine but can't. Jeff isn't moving, and the judge says that if he does nothing, he's accomplished a murder, and Jeff says that he has wanted to kill him for the last 3 years. The judge tells him to think about his wife and daughter, and Jeff starts screaming. As soon as the other arm starts twisting, broken and bleeding, the right leg starts to twist. Jeff says okay and walks over to the key and slowly studies it. Timothy's bones start to splinter into several pieces, and the other leg starts. So this was different between the filmings. So in the theatrical cut, they were almost allowed to show nothing. They in fact had to aim at the ground and aim at the ceiling, and they only alluded at it. And the director said that the theatrical cut was just unwatchable, how much they had to cut out of it. So when they made the unrated cut, we got to see more of the twisting, but by the time we get to the director's cut, we see the leg bone shatter and splinter out in a spiral. There's so much footage there.
So Jeff decides to do the right thing and stop the rack. And when he grabs the key, it sets off the booby trap for the shotgun, but Jeff wasn't standing right in front of it, and it shoots the judge.
Yeah, so it gets a little bit of Jeff's right ear, but the judge got hit in the face by most of the blast, and he's on the ground dying. That's when Timothy's head starts to turn because both his arms and both his legs are already finished.
I think Jeff might have hesitated a little bit too much here.
Yeah. Jeff gets up there looking for the key might go, but he never found it. So he starts there crying, holding Timothy's head as it's twisting all around and killing him. I never saw where the key went.
Oh, yeah. And I don't think he would have made it anyway.
Yeah.
He was hesitating way too much.
Yeah. Then we see Amanda watching all the monitors. Inside the other room, John tells Lynn that it's probably wise to engage in conversation and asks Lynn about her husband. She says that they're like strangers now, and the last time she saw him, they were disconnected. She starts to cry and says she would give anything in the world to see her husband again.
I thought that John made some great points about matrimony and kids here.
Yeah.
At this point, I also stopped this movie to go hug my wife because I was like thinking about the previous Saw movie when he was making points about family and caring for others as humans, and I stopped to go take care of my son. But at this point, I was like, yeah, better go hug my wife. So I did.
That's awesome. John starts talking about his views on marriage. He says, when you have a husband that can't bear to look at their wives that sleep around in motel rooms while neglecting the children that they bore. Lynn seems to get defensive here, saying that her marriage has survived more suffering than a man like John could even grasp. John asks suffering and then tells her that she hasn't seen anything yet, which is the tagline that they use in this movie. They went back to refilm this line because they were like, I got it. I got the good tagline. Then he asks her who she thinks he is, and she answers a monster and a murderer. John says the normal crap he always talks about. He doesn't condone murder. He despises murderers. John grabs her hand, and she pleads to him to let her go. That's when Amanda walks in to see them holding hands. John tells Amanda they are fine and they don't need her, and then he has to repeat himself for her to leave. Amanda goes out to find a manila envelope with her name on it, which she reads, but we don't know what it says.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening right now. Mm-hmm. So Amanda's reading this, and she comes back into the room with a gun this time.
Lynn asks John to let her go because she saved his life, and he says that maybe his wasn't the life she was saving. John pours wax over a mini tape that reads, "Play me," while asking Lynn about her daughter, and then he says, or we could talk about your son, which gets a response out of her. We see Jeff walking. We hear John ask Lynn why she is living with the dead while she has such a beautiful family. While he continues to explain that she is needed by her husband and daughter, Amanda comes in to say he has completed their test, and John turns to Lynn and tells her she is free to go. Amanda says he isn't all the way out yet, and John tells Amanda to let her go, but she says no, he hasn't finished. John tells Amanda that Lynn is more important than she knows, and Amanda says no and pulls the slide back to load a bullet into the chamber. John tells Amanda that those are the rules, and Amanda screams, "I said no," and then she doesn't deserve to go free. John tells Amanda that even with that gun, it is Lynn who holds Amanda's life in her hands. Amanda is pissed because John gave her control over her and tells John, "Fuck you." Lynn, not understanding why, tells Amanda that she will not tell anyone. John asks Amanda about the other test subjects that were left alive, and we cut to see Detective Matthews after the bathroom dragging his mangled foot behind him as he escapes, and he's yelling out for his son Daniel, and Amanda comes back for him.
It seems like, here we see that Amanda and Detective Matthews, presumably after he broke his foot to get out, they were involved, and there was a struggle between them.
So Eric grabs Amanda's leg and bites down hard on her. And then he slams her head into the wall, demanding to know where his son is. She spits up blood onto his face, and he throws her to the ground. He pulls out a knife to ask again, and she says he's fucking here and delivers a kick to his foot, which lets her escape, and he hits the ground screaming.
It looks like she might even broke his foot the way that the angle was with the camera.
Well, it was already broken.
Oh, that's right. It was the broken foot.
Right, yeah. She just hit it again, which is going to be really painful.
Yeah.
She leaves, her face covered in blood. They said they kind of pulled from The Descent. They had just watched The Descent, and the woman's face was all covered in blood, and they kind of referenced that a little bit with Amanda. Yeah.
Detective Matthews has a good line. He says, "You're nothing. You're not Jigsaw, bitch." And he was shouting this, and I think this probably just angered Amanda even more.
Right. And it's funny because in the commentary, Shawnee Smith says that Donnie Wahlberg let her know that they didn't win at the MTV Movie Awards for Best Fight for the year. And she's like, "Why? Were we nominated?" He goes, "No, we weren't even nominated." So she's like, "What's going on, MTV? This was a good fight. We should have been nominated." Then we cut to the present where Amanda says she's a murderer because Eric took her life away from her and she returned the favor. John tells her that she's wrong and that she left him for dead, but he cleaned up her mistakes and forgave him for them, which I think is a hint for the next movie. She thinks John is just fucking with her, and we hear from Jeff's POV that Lynn is yelling, "No, please," but very quietly from where he is. Amanda claims that what John does is no different than murder, but if he had done what she does, then Amanda would be dead. Since she survived her game, he let her live. If he would have done what Amanda does, he would have killed her even though she survived. Amanda tells John that his methods don't work and that no one changes, and they all lied. We see Jeff trying to find his way out, and Amanda tells John that no one is reborn, it's all bullshit, and she is a pawn in the stupid games. Jeff makes it to a locked gate and then remembers the key he got earlier, which hasn't been used yet. Amanda says that she means nothing to John, and he says that their fates are linked and that he has tried to help Amanda. She tells him to fix her and then asks John why Lynn is so important to him. He replies that she isn't important to me, but she's important to you, Amanda. Amanda says that she isn't, and John begs her to reconsider that. Jeff comes up to another box that says last chance, and we hear a voiceover of John tell Amanda that this is her last chance. He picks up a Beretta 92FX in a box. Under that gun is a piece of a photo, but because the movie doesn't want us to see it yet, we don't see the photo. He pops the magazine in with one bullet that he was given. He picks up the picture and looks at it. John tells Amanda her time is running out, and we see Jeff get his angry face on. John tells Amanda to think about what he's done, and the camera turns to show how close Jeff is to entering the door from the outside of that room. A lot happens all at once here. Lynn looks out of the room. Amanda looks away but points the gun at Lynn, and she can't watch as she fires the shot to kill her. Jeff looks in the room and calls out Lynn's name because he knows her. Lynn says, "Jeff?" And Amanda pulls the trigger, shooting her in the back. Time sort of slows down while Jeff catches Lynn. John tells Amanda that she just destroyed 4 lives, then adds, "You just murdered Jeff's wife."
Wow, interesting development. Dr. Lynn is married to Jeff. Whoa, not Chris, who said that he wants a divorce. What he wants from Lynn is a divorce earlier in the movie. I had to go back and rewatch that scene.
Yeah.
Because the way that he says it, it doesn't imply that he's her husband, but he just wants a divorce and wants her to have a divorce.
So that he would have more time with her. Yeah, it's good.
And Amanda's holding the 4th piece of the photo, I think, right? Or
no,
is it Jeff?
Jeff has it because he picked it from the box.
And I presume that's the picture of Lynn.
Right. So each version of the film is cut differently, and they changed it all up. But the one I focused on, I wrote the notes on the most, was the uncut version.
Okay.
Then Jeff shoots Amanda in the neck like a badass, and she hits the floor bleeding a lot. That's when Jeff sits Lynn down against the wall, and John reaches for Amanda. He tells her that it's okay, and the whole thing was her test. Then we see Saw flashbacks, like we do in every movie, recalling back lines said during the movie, like, "I want to play a game. Your will be tested. Your will to keep someone alive." But he's actually talking to Amanda, not just Lynn here. "Can you follow the rules and grant someone the gift of life?" Again, he's talking to Amanda here, not just Lynn. Then we go back over when John took her in after she survived the first game, and we see flashbacks from all 3 movies of how he selected her in the honor of carrying on his work. He goes on to say that she didn't carry out his legacy because she took people's chances away, and we see Adam, Troy, and Eric. John tells her that her games are unwinnable, and we see Detective Carey. John says that her subjects were merely victims. John says that he was desperate for someone to continue his legacy, and he decided to give her one last chance. We see him setting up the area for Jeff. We see a clip where Amanda asks John to choose Lynn because she was the best, and he says that's one reason I chose her. Then we see the last piece of the picture of Jeff's family, which is Lynn. John maybe over-explains it to the audience and tells Amanda that the fact that Lynn and Jeff were married was kept from her for the purposes of her game. We flash over to Jeff and Lynn arguing while their daughter watches. Lynn sleeping with Chris, Jeff holding the gun out on the day that he would kill Timothy. We see where John told Amanda that even with that gun, Lynn holds her life in her hands. Amanda saying that Lynn is important to her, and she refused to let Lynn go free. While he is explaining this, we see Jeff crying over Lynn, who is bleeding but not dead yet. That's when Amanda starts to choke on the blood and falls over dead, and John says, game over.
Wow.
One cool thing that they did here, the director of photography went and bleach whited the scenes that were flashbacks. Since most of this movie took place in this room, seeing a flashback of Amanda from an hour ago would be hard to tell if they didn't change how it looked. So he made it obvious with this bleach pass effect that it was a memory because it looks different than what the present day looks like.
That's a cool effect.
I liked it a lot. Jeff points his gun at John, even though he's already used the one bullet. John asks if he really hasn't learned anything tonight and tells him that his rage and vengeance will only hurt the ones he loves.
Yeah, will Jeff pass this test and forgive John here, or exact his vengeance on John?
So John tells Jeff that his wife is dying. Jeff goes to her. John tells him that he need not miscalculate and that if he moves her, she will die. But if he lets John call an ambulance, the ambulance could be here in 4 minutes. John asks Jeff to face him, and Lynn asks him to stay with her. But he goes to John. Jeff says that he does want his wife back, and Jeff asks what he wants. This is where John says it's one final test. All the instruments in this room, he could act out his vengeance on John.
So will Jeff pass the test and forgive John, or exact his vengeance on him? Which would totally kill his wife, because...
But he doesn't know that.
John would die, and then, his wife would be killed.
But he doesn't know that, right? So, Jeff at first picks up a blade, which they did do a scene. They filmed a scene, and it might be in the deleted scene somewhere. They keep joking in the commentary. It's like, oh, that'll get released with the 42-disc edition. Because they keep putting out new releases of it, right? It's an ongoing joke in the commentaries. So he drops this blade, and then he picks up the circus saw, walks over to John, tells him that he forgives him, but then turns on the saw. Lynn tries to yell out for him to stop, and he cuts through John's neck and says, I forgive you. The Saw theme music comes on, which you know something amazing is going to happen here. Lynn tries to reach for Jeff, but is too weak to move. Her collar starts to activate, and as John's final act, he picks up a mini tape player and clicks play. On the tape, he says that he's made this tape as an insurance policy, and if he's listening to it, it's time to collect. We see the door to the room close shut, both doors, locking Jeff inside. The tape goes on to say that Jeff's final test, and if he's listening to this, he has failed. That is what his vengeance brought upon him. He tells them that he could not kill him, but didn't tell him why. On the tape, John says that he's responsible for the loss of Jeff's child. And we see the camera move throughout the factory, and the camera zooms into a keyhole where we hear John say he is the only person that knows where his daughter is, and she has a limited air supply. He says if Jeff wants to get her, he's going to have to play a game. We see John flatline. Lynn calls out for Jeff, and her head explodes, though we don't see a lot of it. We just get flashes of the character. Throughout the first film, we get all these flashes throughout everything that happened, and then we go back to Lynn with splatter all over the wall. Now, in the director's cut, this whole tape is playing while Jeff is sitting on the floor next to his wife, whose head is missing. It's a little different. And then...
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah, because it's kind of just mangled in the version that I...
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, her neck is gone and above, kind of, right? Like, a little bit of the back of her head's there. Yeah. But he's sitting down instead of standing up, well, the whole time this tape is playing. Now, a deleted scene that happened that we get back in the director's cut is a fight that happened between Amanda and Lynn after the surgery scene. And Lynn is trying to use the door to escape. She doesn't care about the collar. She's trying to get out. Amanda goes to stop her, and they have a fight right then. Lynn is able to get the key off of Amanda's neck and uses it on the collar, but it doesn't work because the key was not designed for the collar, which a lot of people argue online that, the key was obviously for the collar, but because they didn't get to see this deleted scene that showed us that it wasn't, which is now in the director's cut. So that's why we reveal that this key, and they talk about in the commentary, is really to free her daughter, Jeff and Lynn's daughter. Okay. That's what the key around Amanda's neck is for. It's just really interesting. So I went through 6 commentaries for this, and there's a lot of cool facts. Before that, do you want to say anything?
Oh, I just noticed that in this movie, John says, I want to play a game, not do you want to play a game, like Billy the Puppet was saying. But I noticed even Billy the Puppet, I think, says, I want to play a game. I thought that was interesting. Also, I was wondering, what is Amanda's beef with Lynn and Jeff. Like I didn't
She didn't know
quite
they were married.
understand. Yeah, but why is she so like she wants to kill Lynn though over this? Like
She
what
thinks
is
anybody
the deal?
that's being tested doesn't deserve to live. She can't get it. I think she's addicted to being a serial killer now, right? So we hinted at it. She used to be addicted to cutting herself. Then she was addicted to drugs. And she's reverting back to cutting herself. But now she's addicted to killing people. And with losing John, she might lose her ability to start killing people to continue his legacy. That's why she's going back to cutting. So I think she's just a serial killer now. And when Lee Winnell presented this script to the producers and director, he said, I think this is going to be Jigsaw versus a serial killer, but no one will know this until the end of the movie.
Wow.
Which
Okay.
is kind of neat, right?
So I did catch while watching this one that these Saw franchise movies, I'm seeing a lot of parallels with overcoming drug addiction and sort of the struggles that people go through overcoming addictions. I think that Amanda, she's the character in the series that we see this the most in.
Right. So in the commentary with just Lee Winnell, he does talk about how there's rumors online that he wrote the first Saw movie while living with his mother are definitely true. He was still living at home when he wrote the first Saw movie. And now he might be the 8th richest person in Australia. So in the beginning, Donnie Wahlberg, the scene with him as Eric Matthews opens up mere seconds after the last one let off. The director talks about how he thinks it's the very next frame of like Saw 2 ended as the next frame. And they kind of say that they would like a chronological cut of the first 3 Saw movies into one long movie, like The Godfather did. But I think it wouldn't be for first-time watchers because it would give a lot of the secrets away right away. Mm-hmm. Donnie Wahlberg was kept a secret that he was in this movie, and in press conferences he said, no, I'm not in Saw 3. We just couldn't agree on creative things. And so it was kept a secret until people sat in the theater and see that, hey, the movie's opening up with Donnie Wahlberg. That's great. And that scene actually moved around a lot. It wasn't really until that fight scene that we were going to see that Donnie Wahlberg was in this movie at all.
I think that's interesting because it sort of shows that there are lots of fans of the Saw movies, not necessarily going to see just one actor or actress, but just coming to watch Saw.
Yeah, and Lee Winnell says that he debated a lot whether to pander to the crowd that hadn't seen 1 and 2, but he said that no, he wanted to dive all the way in, and if you hadn't seen Saw 1 or 2, this movie wasn't going to make sense for you. You needed to see part 1 and 2 before watching 3, which is kind of cool. He says in the first movie, the pig mask was a total accident, that they just needed something for the person to wear, and that seemed to work. Now the lore has all these things about pigs. They answer more of it in future films, but it was all just because they happened to put one in the first movie. Lee jokes around that he is always asked, how does he come up with such evil stuff? And he says, it's really easy. You could think of something evil. He's like, you could think of, all right, we have a room with 1 million paper cuts, and then the person has to swim through a pool of alcohol, which would burn like crazy. He's like, it's really easy to come up with that. And I did that in 30 seconds. The real trick is to make it artful and look like art, not just torture for the sake of torture. In the scene where Amanda explains to Lynn that she could try to escape but would fail because of all these reasons, Lee Winnell says he added it because there's always going to be someone in the audience named Greg or maybe Steve who would inevitably start talking to Lynn or maybe Beth about why doesn't she just leave? Why didn't she hit him with that axe? Well, too bad, Steve. You thought you could outthink us. We got a step ahead of you.
You mean Steve the camp counselor from Friday the 13th?
Yeah, that one, that's it. No, but he jokes around that that's the reason those scenes are put in there. So people aren't yelling at the screen or on forums later, why did she do this or this? Yeah. Which I think is kind of cool. He says the pig vat was inspired by Dario Argento film, which used real maggots. The actress playing Lynn had to really push hard to get the drill through the skull, and they said if she had done this on a real human skull, they would have went right through the brain. This is like she wasn't strong enough, and by the time she pushed through, she pushed way too hard. He said that the rapid jump cuts used in the first movie were because of budget reasons and they couldn't film a lot of things. But now, because they're become a staple of the Saw series, even though they now have 5 times the budget as they did on the first one, they still use it because people expect them in the Saw movies. In this movie, they use three dolls as Billy, and they have a person that works for Twisted Pictures that sells props. And while the first Billy sold for $4,000, like the one James Wan built himself, the first one of these three sold for $12,000. So he says whoever owns that first Billy could probably sell it for even more now.
Yeah.
Because they're going up in price. He says
They're
each
very
one that
popular.
sells goes for even more.
You mentioned there are a couple of icons that people go to the theater to see, and Billy is one of them.
Yeah, completely. The bathroom that they used for this movie. So in the first movie, they built the bathroom, they had to destroy it. In the second movie, they had to build it piece by piece, and they looked at old drawings and the footage of the first movie and rewatched it to get every tile in the same place because fans deserve to see it and they will know if it doesn't look right. To save money, they actually got the Saw bathroom that was created in Scary Movie 4 to film these comical scenes in there where Jigsaw is Billy the Puppet and he puts these people in traps, which is really funny. But they said they got it close but not close enough, and they spent a lot more money to fix the bathroom. They think it would have been easier to just build it from scratch again.
No, this is going back to our previous podcast, but in Saw 2, they had to actually recreate the bathroom completely. So are you saying that they were reusing the bathroom set for this movie?
So in Scary Movie 4, the comedy series.
Oh, right.
Right? The fourth movie did a lot of Saw, right? They had the main character of but Cindy, not Sydney, right? And the other characters wake up in the Saw bathroom. In fact, the opening scene, I think, of the movie is Shaquille O'Neal waking up in the Saw bathroom with Dr. Phil. And they have to try to escape together, which is hilarious. But because
that's a good parody.
Right. So because they had that there, they wanted to save money by just saying, hey, we already have the bathroom built. You don't need to rebuild it. But they spent a lot of money to make it
Scary Movie
more right. Yeah.
Was trying to reuse the Saw set, is what you're saying.
No, they had to build their own.
Oh, they had to build.
Scary Movie 4 gave the Saw set to Saw 3 that they had built. And then Saw 3 had to spend a lot of money to make it.
Now I'm catching you. Oh my gosh.
Right. Yeah,
sorry
exactly. No, you're good. You're good. At the end of the commentary, with director Bousman, David Armstrong, who's the DP, and Kevin Gurert, who's the editor, I probably said that last name wrong, they joked around that their original idea for Saw 4 was that his brain was going to be kept alive on a space station, and John's brain takes over the space station. Saw in space.
Crazy.
And that was because they said that no one listens this far in the commentary, and that if this leaked online, that's what Saw 4 was going to be about, that people would know, they would know that people watched to the end of the commentary.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
That's pretty funny, yeah. There was a commentary with the director and Jay LaRose, who played Troy, which I thought was the funniest pairing. He's like, all right, who hasn't talked in these movies yet? Because we've done so many commentaries. So they got the actor that played Troy in that first scene to be in the commentary. And what I learned here, they joke around that they wanted him to be nude because they had a nude woman in this movie. But then when they saw him nude, they were like, nope, get that man a pair of underwear. But he became popular overseas and was actually the poster of Saw 3 overseas. And a lot of the marketing was of this guy, Jay LaRose, who played Troy. And Darren Lynn Bousman joked around when they were out to lunch together after this that people stop all the time to be like, oh my gosh, you're in Saw 3 to Jay LaRose, but they don't talk to Darren Lynn Bousman because no one knows what he looks like because he's the director of Saw 2 and 3, which is kind of funny. But Jeff, during the filming of this movie, lost 30 pounds from start to finish. So by the end of the movie, he's thinner than...
Oh, no.
Which is funny. Amanda died in the same position that John faked his death in Saw 1. The original cut for Saw 3 was 3 hours and 20 minutes, which Darren says gets improved every time you cut it down because the scenes just run smoother, but he had a lot that he did there.
I thought this Saw movie was a bit long, personally. I didn't watch the director's cut,
which is
was
longer.
much longer, but I thought it was already long for me. I thought some of the flashback scenes, though they were really good for the storyline, they probably could have been cut a little bit.
Right.
But yeah, other than that, it was pretty good.
I did love that Lee Winnell said Saw 7 would be called Mission to Moscow, which I know is a Police Academy reference because the 7th movie in Police Academy is Mission to Moscow. And I was like, good job, Lee Winnell. I love Police Academy. I know you love Police Academy. I thought that was kind of cool.
That's one of the first comedy movie sort of series that we watched together when we were little.
Right, that's what I mean. Yeah, exactly. And then there was a deleted scene where they showed Amanda going back to kill Eric Matthews by slitting his throat, which is not canon because we know that he's there in Saw 4.
And she claimed to have killed him too.
Yeah, exactly.
In this in Saw 3, but
Yeah.
we sort of suspect and already know he's coming back.
Yeah, but I don't regret watching 6 commentaries. That was a lot of fun. I liked it. It was a
You're very
lot
dedicated.
of information. Well,
Very
I would say that
dedicated.
there was diminishing returns, but each one had new facts that I hadn't heard before, which I loved. All right.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be here with you today.
If you'd like to follow us on Instagram, we're at Nightmare Echoes Pod. We actually have all the links in the description of the show notes. And I feel like Threads is where a lot of people are having a lot of really good conversations right now. We just made a Blue Sky account if that's where you're at. You can follow us there too. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.